Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. So it's been like 3 months since we last had one meeting. And welcome to the February edition of the Philly MacAdmins meeting. So we got a lot to cover since we've been away for a while, so we're just going to go right into it. We're going to talk about all the Catalina stuff that happened while we were away, all the iOS 13, iPadOS, tvOS, and watchOS updates, and the new stuff with Office, lots of security stuff as well, some items of interest, and some of the conference stuff. And we'll have, at the end, we'll have a Jamf update from our friend Adam. So we're going to go right into Catalina stuff. So while we were away, 10.15.1 was released in pretty much right after our last meetup. So, and new features that everybody was clamoring for was 70 plus new emojis. It added AirPods Pro support. And there were some updates to the Home app. It fixed a issue with non-US keyboards where passwords for certain characters were getting rejected at the login window, which you can imagine was kind of bad. And it fixed an issue when you suppress the Apple ID sign-in with a config profile. It now dims the actual sign-in button. So it doesn't deceive people and think it actually works or anything. There was 49 CVEs closed, affecting 31 processes in this particular update. And one thing that I actually forgot to add to the slides was the whole MacBook Pro 16-inch that was released while we were away. But
it's been that long.
It's been that long. So there's a special forked build for the 16s that came out when the 16s were introduced, which was right around that time. And everything was unified in the next update, which was 10.15.2. And that was released in December. Consumer updates to Apple News and Stocks, which I am sure everybody here used a lot of every day. There was fixes to music, iTunes Remote, Photos, and Mail, but not the one mail issue that people were complaining about. It fixed an issue with a password may not be accepted at the login window after you upgraded a T2 Mac to Catalina, which was a lot of fun for affected users. Also, finally fixed compatibility with video conferencing apps on the 2018 MacBook Pro models. I think there were some people who were experiencing kernel panics when they tried to join a conference, so that was fun too.
That's still going on.
But the big thing is standard users can now install apps from the App Store. I think that was a regression when it introduced in Catalina, where you had to be an admin to download App Store apps. And so in 10.15.2, they finally fixed the regression. Security content, there was 49 CVEs affecting 13 processes, and there's details there. And the most recent update, 10.15.3, was released on the 28th of January. This is very kind of niche that they called out, but it optimizes the gamma handling of low-grade levels on the Pro Display XDR, which I'm sure everyone has, for SDR workflows, which is obviously very important for the video guys, but not necessarily for the rest of us. Also, another video-specific update improves the multi-stream video editing performance for those high-definition encodings. And finally, does fix that Mail app issue that caused data loss that's been documented and going around. And security content, 32 CVEs affecting 20 processes on that one. So. One of the things that is broken in 10.15.3, though, is something we were talking before the stream. Certain AD admin groups, if you specify an AD admin groups, either domain admins, even if you just leave domain admins in, they lose sudo access randomly, and sometimes it comes back after a restart, sometimes it doesn't. And So that's currently an issue people are dealing with now. Things that I didn't make the slide. Also, if you had custom PAM or SSD settings, those get nuked on the update. So that took a couple people by surprise. Think about prior macOS updates. There was security update 2019-01 for Mojave, and 2019-06 for High Sierra was released around 10.15.1. So some, but not all, of the security patches that were closed in Catalina are closed in these updates. And shortly after that, 2019-02 and 2019-07 in December, again, same thing. Some, but not all, updates that were closed in Catalina apply to the older OSs. But if you're still using those are important to close as many of those as possible. And the most recent one is 2020-01 for both Mojave and High Sierra, and I forgot to update the slide when I copy and pasted. So that was released in January as well. Moving on to iOS 13. While we were away, 13.2 was released shortly after our last meeting. This adds Deep Fusion for iPhone 11 cameras, which is a special new feature for the iPhone 11 cameras. I forget what it does now, but I read it. But I read it earlier, and it sounded very nifty. Also adds AirPods Pro support. Can't see, this happens when you have a long layoff. You can't even speak in front of the camera anymore. So, also updates to the Home app, Siri, and all the same emojis every other OS update got, because those were important. And the security content on this one, 31 CVEs affecting 15 processes. Also released while we were away, 13.2.2. That was released in November. This contains a lot of bug fixes. This was a big bug fix release. And but there was no actual CVEs, no published or disclosed CVEs that were closed in this particular update. If there is anything, I'm sure Apple reserves the right to update the security content pages at a later date, which they've done before. And then 13.2.3 was released also later in November. And this, again, a big bug fix update. And again, no published CVEs for that as well. And lastly, well, actually not lastly, but next was the 13.3 release in December. And this had updates to Screen Time, Apple News, and Stocks. And also, among other things, the big thing it added was support for NFC, USB, and Lightning 502 keys, security keys in Safari. So you can actually now use your iOS device as a security token for things that support that type of thing, which Azure AD does, which is very exciting for those of us who have Azure AD. But it will work for anything that supports 502, so I think that also includes Okta and most of the other IDMs as well. So that's exciting. Now, if only that would come to macOS, then we'd be cooking again. There was also numerous fixes, as I mentioned, that I didn't have room to list. Security content, 14 CVEs affecting 10 processes. And then lastly, it brings us up current, is 13.3.1, which was released last month. And this fixes an APNS over Wi-Fi issue where for some reason it affected some users. They weren't getting push notifications over Wi-Fi. So, which, because the APNS is supposed to be working over Wi-Fi, it's kind of a big deal. So I don't remember running into that issue. So it must have been only affecting people in certain circumstances or certain networks. But it seemed like when I first read that, it's like, oh, this would have been a huge issue, but I don't remember it being a huge issue Unless I just had my head in the sand, which is possible. Security content, 32 CVs affecting 17 processes. So, iPad OS, now that it's been split out, we actually have a separate what's new and updates in iPad OS updates page, which I'm now linking to. Again, AirPods Pro support. It's like they want everybody to use AirPod Pro. Updates to Home App, Siri, and the new emojis as well. Lots of bug fixes, and security content was 31 CVs affecting 15 processes. So, and then 13.2.2 was released in November, early November. Also a big bug fix release, and this one had no published CVEs listed that were closed. So I can only assume that if there's anything in there, they will be disclosed later because the disclosure term hasn't expired yet. 13.2.3 was released in late November. Again, bug fixes, and again, no published security content. And then 13.3 was released in December. Again, updates to Stream Time, Apple News, and Stocks. Again, adding support for the NFC, USB Lightning, and all the 502 key goodness. More fixes, and this one had 14 CVs affecting 10 processes closed. And then 13.3.1, which brings us up to current. That again fixes the same APNS or Wi-Fi issue and other bugs as well. And then 32 CVs affecting 17 processes. And there were some iOS 12 updates while we were away, even though that's officially a deprecated OS. So 10.14.3 was released in late October. No CVEs were disclosed or have been disclosed yet, but since it's an old iOS update that's not being actively developed, I can only imagine that this is probably a CVE. There's a CVE that has, or multiple CVEs that hasn't been disclosed. That's why they had to backport this. And 10.14.4 also released in December again, and this one did have a single CVE that is listed as patched, but more may be released in the future. And then 10.14.5, and that was supposed to be 1, not 10. So I got to update that date on that, and there was no published security content on that. So we move along to watchOS 6. And 6.1 was released on 10.29, and that finally brought watchOS 6 compatibility to Series 1 and 2 watches, which my watch was very happy about. So 21 CVEs affecting 10 processes closed in this one, and then 6.1.1 was released in December. That was a bug fix mainly, and there was 11 CVs closed and 9 processes closed on that one. And then we got 16.1.2 released in January. That's also mainly a bug fix release, and 17 CVs affecting 8 processes closed there. And just earlier this week, like yesterday, watch 6.1. And that should be 3, not 13. I'm sorry. Was released, and this was a bug fix update, but no disclosed CVEs on that one. And then switching to tvOS, 10.13.2 was released in October after our last meeting. That's mainly, like most of the tvOS stuff, they don't tell you what's been updated unless it's been something major, so it's all just security stuff. So again, 24 CVEs affecting 8 processes, and tvOS 13.3 was released in December, and then 10 CVs affecting 7, and then 13.3.1 was released in January, and that's 21 CVs closed on that one, and that was it for tvOS and all the obvious updates. And this is the spot where I should have put the MacBook Pro with 16 inch, but I didn't because I forgot. But yes, the Macro Pro 16-inch was released while we were also away. C has, well, you can put more RAM in it, you can put larger drives in it. It has what everybody loves, and it's the only thing that everybody's buying 16.4 is the old school keyboard that actually people like. So yes, I'm sure their sales numbers will go up, and we've had requests for that as well too, because everybody hated the old keyboard.
Can confirm. 16-inch keyboard.
I don't care about the keyboard, so I don't understand you people. But everybody's happy, which means I'll probably sell more Macs, which of course, obviously that's good for everybody. So, moving on to Office. While we were away, there was a bunch of Office releases. There was 16, 31, 32, 33, and 34 because Microsoft releases on a monthly cadence. And all the details of what changes is listed there because I didn't want to look them up and summarize all of them because it's been a lot. So the big thing to take away from this is now, as of 1631, High Sierra is now the minimum OS for compatibility with Office 2019/365. So, I think you even get, if you have the auto update installed on any Mac that's not High Sierra or earlier, you get a little pop-up says, you are not on the supported version of the OS to use the new update. Please upgrade your OS. So you get a notification for that. So Microsoft doing some of the work for you to help get you up, get your stragglers in line.
Didn't know that.
So yeah.
Good to know.
I have a couple of test boxes that are on older OS for just this type of situation. So also while we're away, Office 2016 continues to get updated on the monthly cadence, but these are mainly just security updates because it's now less than 8 months before its end of life. So if you're still on 2016, you probably want to move to 2019/365 before October. Also while we're away, 14.17 through 14.20 were released for auto updates, and the last two versions now, they've changed the UI, so it looks a little slicker, and you can do things like force updates now. If you have the right configuration profile or set the settings correctly, you can either do a hard date where you can say everything after this date, or you can do a rolling date depending on when the next version is released. So like you can say 14 days after the version is released, force the update. Or say, I want everybody to be on this version by, March 31st. So, and it's 420 that actually all works the way it's intended to.
Strange how that works.
And there's the line about Mac OS Sierra being no longer the minimum required OS. So. And there was a lot of security stuff that happened while we were in, as we can imagine, and we probably forgot some stuff as well because it's been a while. There was a vulnerability discovered in sudo that affects Linux and Mac OS. But there's a caveat. So it's actually what is the PF feedback has to be enabled for that to be exploited. And at least on Mac OS, that is not enabled by default. So you would have to go in and enable it in order to exploit this vulnerability. I don't know if this vulnerability is going to be addressed in a future version of Mac OS because of that defaulted setting is off. But we'll see. So, one of two LastPass entries, because we were doing this in order of discovery, the LastPass drops support for their Mac app and switches everything to their web app. And details on that is linked there. Also, while we were away, it was discovered that Wacom software discovers data on the applications you have installed and use, which is again, security, where security software only just increases your exposure service. A bit of good news, Safari drops Flash in its tech preview, which means it will probably be coming soon to main Safari.
A little behind.
Yeah, I mean,
Chrome still uses
Chrome still supplies its own version of Flash. And probably will until the end of the year, at least.
It's the end of the year is when it dies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
the new Chrome.
Microsoft Edge.
Credge.
So so everybody, I know there's still sites out there that use Flash. They're probably going to be using Flash
Who here does not
either right up
install
until the deadline or a couple of months into 2021
We allow it.
because they're like, oh no, we didn't know it was going to expire. So, and here's the second LastPass entry. There was an extended outage. Some people they described it as a bug in their software that affected a fraction of a percentage of their users. But that was still but depending, I think at scale, that still was a lot because they have a lot of users. So I think we're still talking about like hundreds of users, maybe even thousands. So it was pretty significant, and some people were out for multiple days. Like I saw some testimonials of at least 3 days. So yes, not a good look.
I'm glad I didn't lose that. I still use LastPass.
So on the flip side, you can now use iOS as a Google security key. That's Google's app now leverages the secure enclave, so it generates keys for that, and you can actually use it as an MFA device for that. So that's more good news on the security front there. There was a large critical 0-day discovered in Firefox 72 and earlier. And so yes, I remember having to emergency patch a bunch of Firefox across the enterprise. And I hope you have done that too.
72.1 fixes that, right?
Yeah, 72.1 fixes that. Anything above 72.1 has the fix. And I think we're on like 73.01 or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's 7301, but yeah, 7201 fixed the issue.
Yeah.
They caught it pretty quickly.
That's,
Yeah.
yeah.
I remember
Do you
seeing
know if that affects ESR too?
ESR has a fix as well.
Yeah, ESR does have a
That's why
fix.
it's like 68.5.1.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Just
So,
making
yeah.
sure. Good, because that's what we're
Yeah. So Apple announced their public bug bounty program. So they're pretty stringent about their requirements. You can't just report a bug, but you also have to supply a working POC for them to actually give you money. I think the minimum prize was 200 grand. And I think they were offering like either a 1 million or 1.5 million prize as the highest
If
end.
you
with
can
our
find us-
powers combined, we got what, 10 people
Well,
here?
one of us
That's
is-
pretty good. Pretty good.
Find a
20 grand each.
in
Let's
the
do it.
center
Let's
on- you can get
Let's
there.
do it. Let's see it. Go get
Um,
rings. Ooh.
So there was a T2 deep dive session from the Black Hat conference where they go into detail about the D2, how it works, and how it's good or not good, and that's particular interest for folks who like that stuff. Also, while we were away, a True Dialogue had a database with millions of SMS messages contained within that was leaked, found online somewhere, and which is not good. I don't know if I have any SMM messages in there, or whatever that word is. But that's we all know SMS is not secure, so this is just adding fuel to the fire. So, moving on to items of interest, and we're going to spend a little bit of time on this because Monkey 4.0 was released, and this is a significant release because this is now this is a Python 3 conversion, and Monkey now ships with its own Python. If you want more particulars about the architectural changes, I have it detailed there. But essentially, it should function as the same as 3.6. 364 was there. It's just now it runs on Python 3 instead of Apple's Python. So,
Good for money.
right. Like the Python 2, Python 3. Python 2 is officially end of life at the beginning of this year. The Python org is supposed to release a final bug fix update in April, but everybody should be moving away from Python 2. But if you're still using Monkey 364, that will continue to work on any Mac that includes Apple's Python 2, which will probably stop at whatever new Mac OS they release this year, is what we're all guessing. So, but yeah, for now you can, you may have some time, because we're pretty sure that Python is not being removed in Catalina at this point.
You don't know what Apple's going to do.
But
It was
you never know.
rumored that this is the
You never
last
know.
version to include Python 2.
We're pretty. I
That's
think
what I
it's.
understand.
You can make a presumption. I mean, we could still be wrong. They could just yank it out at any time. But I think going forward,
10, 15.
this will probably be the last version of Python that's included in the OS.
We know it.
So.
Which is sad. Oh, well, they should be releasing.
And following the release of 4.0, there was a 4.01 release which fixed some bugs, and the 4.1 release was fixed some more bugs. So for Monkey users, that's very important to try and get everything. Because there was a couple of Python 3 things that I think tripped up a few people that also got fixed in some of these releases because of the conversion. Because it's a moving target at the moment. It'll probably settle down once more people move onto the Python 3 version and get their workflows up on that.
Hey, Mike, did you move to it yet?
Oh yeah.
And-
Honestly, some of the bugs were like if you set a preference as a string, Python 3, instead of like an actual key
Right.
or boolean, Python 3 is very particular about that
Yes.
stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a lot more. There's a lot more things that are stricter in Python 3 than they were in Python 2, and that trips up some people
You
when
have
you're not
be a
expecting.
string, and Python 2 will be like, yeah, sure,
Yep.
that's true.
So, moving on, in the similar vein, Auto Package 2.0 was released. This is also now Python 3 compliant and ships its own Python as well. If you are, and again, with same thing with Monkey, if you're using Auto Package 141 and you have recipes that are dependent on that will still work for any Mac OS up until whatever the next version is that doesn't include Python. So you may still have some time to still use that while you test things in Python 3. There's a lot of recipes and processors that are currently being converted to be compatible with Auto Package 1 and 2, but you'll need to test any recipes that you use all the time to make sure that they work in Auto Package 2, because you'll need to move to that eventually. And if you find something that isn't, file an issue with the recipe author, or if you are so inclined, file a PR to help them fix it, because all of us are busy and may not have time to test out or do those things. So, yeah.
Does JSS Importer work with it yet?
JSS Importer did have.
I know they had an update, but
Yeah,
I know you went backwards.
Yes, I went backwards. So JSS Importer does have I think has a compatible release that I forgot to put up again.
Okay.
I think it doesn't break.
I'm holding out on it still, so.
So, yeah, I have a test system that I have everything Python 3 compatible on that, and I have a bunch of recipes that broke, and I put in a couple of PRs about a couple of issues, and hopefully those get resolved soon. Elliot Jordan, if you know who he is, has started to do that. I think since like October or November of last year, just going around and just like running tests on people's recipes and processors, and saying, "Hey, this looks like it might be a problem," and has offered a couple of PRs. So most of them have been fixed. Some of them have
needed other things, but he's been helping out a lot. So if you see him at a conference somewhere, buy him a beer.
His handle's home by 6.
Home by 6.
That's his
Yes.
It looks like I guess that's important.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, I thought it was, and I just forgot to include it. So, Auto Packager has a 1.52 released, and that includes compatibility for Auto Package 2. Basically, it recognizes that Auto Package 2 has been released and will probably get updated. So, while we're away, Swift Playground's now available for Mac OS. So if you're interested in Swift, you can now play around with it on your Mac as opposed to playing around with it on your iPad or iPhone, which may not be as fun. So a company called iMazing released a profile editor in the same vein as Profile Creator. I downloaded it but I haven't checked it out yet, but it looks very interesting. It looks very similar. You'll be able to do some kind of things as Profile Creator. So if you use Profile Creator, there might be something you want to check out. And lastly, Glances, which is a H-top replacement and system monitor, was released, and that works on all Unix-based systems, and I think Windows as well. So you can get a version for any flavor of OS. And so conferences. So first up is the Objective by the Sea, which was announced in March in Hawaii. So if you feel like getting away from the winter blues, there's a conference you can use to go to.
I wish I knew about Monica. I could have been in for it.
So
They did Monica last
Shut
time.
up,
It's ridiculous.
yeah. So and MacAdmins is this year in London is in late March, and they are still accepting speaker proposals as far as I knew last time. But details are in there. So if you want to go to London, there's an opportunity. So no information on when the next WWDC is, other than it'll be in June. But the last WWDC videos are still posted. No information yet on Mac deployment that I found, unless I just missed it. And same thing with Mac DevOps YVR, I might have missed that too. PSU is late this year, July 21st to 24th, and the proposals are open now. So if you feel like talking about something, go ahead and submit a proposal. So no details on the next Mac system in yet, but the last one has a video posted as well. Mac Tech, this was from last year that I forgot to update. They don't post, I don't think they take videos of their sessions, or if they do, they don't post them online.
No.
But that was last year in October. And of course, Jamf Nation, JNUC videos have been posted since then, and I forgot to put the link for JNUC 2020. That's in September in San Diego. I forget the dates off my top of my head. Adam?
September 20-something. I have it I have it on my deck. Here we go. Let's see.
Anybody put in for any talks yet?
September 29th to October 1st.
There you go.
Anybody put in for any talks?
Soon.
Can you all contribute to my
And
GoFundMe?
speaking of JNUC and Jamf, we're now going to have Adam talk to us about all the new things that Jamf has been doing since we were away. So.
And thank Jan for the food today.
Yes.
Thank you, Jan, for the primo hoagies.
Thanks, Jim.
All right. So I'm going to disconnect and let Adam take it.
Yes, this year as a talking person.
I love this machine. Find some kind of talk.
We can all talk.
You can talk, it's just if it gets accepted or not.
Looking at smart cards.
I'm talking about if I get accepted. Communication's dangerous. Remember, they're not stupid. They just have to think now.
Woohoo. You like that? I stole that off of Google.
As one does, as one does.
Google's don't
Yeah,
do
could have
that.
asked. Only stealing. It's only stealing if we.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks everybody for Serge for allowing me a couple minutes here just to kind of give you guys an update, from Jamf. So let's dive in. So I want to talk about a couple changes going on with Jamf Nation, Google secured LDAP integrations into Jamf Pro, some Azure SSO integrations, making things a little bit easier for you guys to set up. Pre-stage enrollment packages, and just some other housekeeping items as well. If you signed in to Jamf Nation yesterday or today, you've probably been prompted to reset your password. This is because we are now having what are called Jamf IDs, so similar to an Apple ID. This will be your ID for the whole Jamf ecosystem. That's the goal.
I have one from work and one from my own
You
personal.
can have one with both email addresses.
I can just
It's
merge
just
them.
like, it's just like
You can-
Apple IDs. You're gonna have half a dozen of them.
Yeah,
Yeah, like my company one has all my assets.
Yeah.
My personal one has nothing except my message.
yeah, you could merge them. We could talk off chain.
Yeah,
afterwards.
let's talk offline.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to do that. I don't
Yeah.
know if I want to do that.
Yeah.
Reset the password on both of them.
But this will actually allow you access into the training catalog. So as I mentioned last time I was here, everybody can access the training catalog now. So you don't have to just be in cloud. You could also be on-prem to access the training catalog. So if you've never accessed the training catalog before, it'll be much easier because you could just sign in with that Jamf ID. We're looking to integrate it in with some of the other stuff down the road, maybe Jamf Heroes, as well as like the Jamf Marketplace and things like that. So we'll see what happens. As Serge mentioned a couple minutes ago, JNUP 2020 is going to be September 29th to October 1st in San Diego. So it's a little bit early this year. Usually, traditionally, JNUP's in October, except this past year it was in November. If anybody's interested in submitting a conference proposal for a speech or anything, let me know. More than happy to jump on the board with you guys if you don't want to do it alone, or if you just need some advice on presenting. So I've presented at JNUC before as well as Penn State, so definitely willing to help you guys out if that's something that you want to do. If your proposal does get accepted, you do get a free ticket into JNUC. So if you're having some issues, justifying that expense, nice way to get into any conferences by presenting. So if you're planning on paying, right now might be the time that you want to go ahead and purchase that ticket because prices will go up by $100 in a couple weeks here. So.
Man.
It used to be $5.99 the ticket.
It used to be free.
Well, it's in California now, so you know.
California.
It was free until 4 years ago.
I apply for a
That's
scholarship.
fine.
Also, if you're in Jamf Heroes and you do enough challenges, you can actually trade in your points for a JNUP ticket. And I actually believe there's a 50% off
Really?
code for a JNUP ticket that they're working on.
You serious?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I'm on that.
100,000 points?
So
I
How
mean,
many-
some of
what's
us
the
might be
threshold?
like in the top 15 still.
yeah, I'll show you afterwards. So
Yeah.
I've probably put in about 50 hours at the Jamf Heroes booth at JNUP this year. And a lot of people came up after we announced that JNUP was moving to San Diego, and they're like, can you guys put a JNUP ticket in there or something like that? So that's something that Jenny's working on. I got to check and see if it's actually on there yet. But yeah, it's definitely going to be possible if you do enough challenges and things like that. So
I get an invite?
for Heroes?
Yeah.
Yeah, afterwards I'll send you an invite.
Thanks.
It's gonna grind.
Well,
Yeah.
That's going to become my
If
mission.
anybody wants an invite to
Spring
Jamf Heroes,
Spring break next week. I got time.
let me know afterwards. I'll send you an invite. So really nice way to get Jamf swag so, for free. Cool. So let's dive right into 10.19. So currently, a Mac admin can leverage some features of Google Secure LDAP, but it was kind of a pain in the neck to get it set up. If you wanted to import things like departments, anything essentially other than a username, it would take a lot of work. With Jamf Pro 10.19, you can now map data from that user record right into your Jamf Pro. A little bit easier than what you might have been used to before.
That's similar to like the old AD, LDAP
Yep,
integration.
exactly. Yep. Another thing that's nice for is things like smart groups, policies. So. Another thing that we went ahead and streamlined was Azure SSO setup. So previously it was a very lengthy process, required a lot of work on your end to get that set up. With the new improvements, a lot of fields just got removed from that setup experience. So it's really kind of just a lot more simplified process. If you already have Azure set up, you don't have to worry about anything. You're good to go, no changes, but this is really something kind of just moving forward as more people join in on the bandwagon with Jamf, trying to just make that overall experience a little bit easier, especially as a lot of people are moving away from on-prem AD and going down to Azure train. So, one really cool thing is enrollment packages. So previously you can only attach one package to a pre-stage enrollment. So now you have the ability to add as many packages as you want for things like Jamf Connect, Dep Notify. One caveat to that is it's an enrollment experience, so you don't want to attach 5 or 10 packages.
You don't want to drop Office down on it.
Yeah, you want to wait until after enrollment for those packages to get deployed. But this is all feedback that we've gotten on Jamf Nation, from people talking with people from engineering via Jamf Heroes, and even just at user groups. So everything that you guys tell us, we always take that back to the table. So keep those feature requests coming.
Keep the URL circulating.
There's also you can now use an on-prem HTTPS
Yes.
server.
Yep.
As long as it's properly signed, I believe.
Yeah.
As long as it has a proper SSL server.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is 248 or whatever.
Well, just a proper, trusted SSL server.
Yeah, third-party trusted.
Third party. You can't use like a self-signed or a internally signed, but it's awesome. I'm glad they took feedback from it.
A couple other small things. With Jamf Composer, you already have the ability now to go ahead and pause and cancel builds. So if you start building something and you realize you forgot to add something in there, you don't have to force quit out of Composer. You have the ability to just pause it or cancel it completely. You might have noticed also that some of the buttons look a little bit different in Jamf Pro, just making it look a little bit more modern. No big changes to that. And a big one, so in Jamf Pro now, you guys have the ability to have some more control over notifications. So if you have a notification for a certain app that you want to take precedence on that computer, and maybe they might have suppressed it before, you could actually force that notification. A really good example of that, self-service. So at my former employer, we would use self-service to send notifications out to employees with campus events and things like that. Well, some people would just hit don't allow for notifications, and they would never get them again. So you as the admin now have the ability to override that and force those notifications out onto those devices.
Does it work for like do not disturb too and stuff?
Yes.
Like that? Oh, awesome.
Yeah. It's very similar to iOS. So with iOS, you have the ability, same thing, like if phone's in do not disturb, doctors can get like critical alerts and pages and things like that. It's very similar experience. So this is now shipping, so most of you should probably have been upgraded if you're into cloud, or you're scheduled to be upgraded probably soon.
Just upgraded to 10.
If you're on-prem, who knows?
2 days before 19 came out. I upgraded 2 days before 19 came out.
Adam, can I share something?
Yeah.
I don't know if I can share it with the camera. Like when I asked about Casper admin tools,
Yeah.
can I tell? Casper. That's how long I've been with it. Jamf admin tool. I asked that question to Mark, and he answered that question, but I don't know if it's good. in front of the camera or offline.
Is it a beta? Well, we're.
Oh, from New York.
Yeah, from New York.
Yeah, that's off.
That's
camera
offline.
thing.
All right,
We
I'll,
can
I'll
talk
share it
after.
off. I'll share it offline.
Yeah.
Looks at the camera.
Off the camera thing.
So, Mr. Goldberg, right?
NDA
Yeah. He attended the New York user group a couple weeks ago. So.
There you go.
Come on up. It's great. It's great.
Yeah.
200 people.
Come to Philly, it's better.
We have bogeys here.
We have gritty and we have hoagies.
Yeah.
Win-win.
Thanks, Adam.
Yeah, that's
Thank you,
about it.
Adam.
I'll be around afterwards if you guys want to talk. So.
So for your question, so I have my personal.
Still recording.
We're
We're still rolling.
So,
Still
rolling.
Sweet.
So, since there's,
none of that NDA stuff.
since
I
there's
can
some
share
interest in
afterwards.
some
I'll share
NDA
afterwards.
stuff, we're gonna cut the stream early. So thank you all for coming, and we'll see you in, what was it, April?
April.
April, yes.
And
See you
if
back
you're
here
in the
April.
area, come to Yards next month.
Yes, we'll be doing yards, so. Standing invitation. So,
Might be more comfortable to sit though.
Peace.
all right, everyone.